up a room also because I realized that I left my computer elsewhere and I'm super late. Apologies. Time. Okay. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Shra Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadha Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hariom Tat Sat. So yesterday Mahaprabhu was giving a synopsis of all the main ideas that he wants to express when describing the Atmarama verse. That's what we were hearing. We didn't finish that passage. It's from verse number 70 to 106. So we want to finish that today. So he was describing the essential purport of the Atmarama verse. So therein he describes that the word Atma refers to the absolute reality. Absolute reality is non-dual consciousness fundamentally. And in its completion, it is known as Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. So according to different sadhanas, people understand that one reality in three different ways: as Brahman, as Paramatma, and as Bhagavan. By a path of Gyan Marg, one understands that reality as Brahman. By Yoga Marg, one comes up to the realization of Paramatma. And by Bhakti Marg, one can understand that reality is Bhagavan. There are two types of bhakti sadhanas, Rag Bhakti and Vidhi Bhakti. So by Rag Bhakti, you understand Swayam Bhagavan himself. And by Vidhi Bhakti, you can understand some expansion form of the Swayam Bhagavan, some expansion form of Bhagavan. That's basically what we heard. And then he gave some pramanas for that. Then he was going to describe how there are three types of bhaktas on the path of Vidhi. I'm pretty sure this is in the context on the path of Vidhi. Marg, Bhakti. So that's where we left off, this verse 89. Pulling up the verse here. So say upasaka hai trivida prakar. So he says, say upasaka, those devotees. So this word those was referring to the persons who follow the path of Vidhi or Vaidhi Bhakti, because that's what was just explaining just before this statement. So contextually, I'm pretty sure this is referring to those on the path of Vaidhi Bhakti. So he says these worshippers or devotees, there are three types: akama, moksha kama, and sarva kama are. So one type is without material desires. Another type is having the desire for liberation. And another type is having material desires, sarva kama. So of course, he quotes this verse, very famous verse, Srimad Bhagavatam. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udharidi. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham. So one who is actually intelligent, udharadihi. Although he may be a devotee free from material desires, a karmi desiring all kinds of material facilities, or a Jnani desiring liberation. So if he's smart, udharitihi, intelligent, he should seriously engage in bhakti yoga for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. So Kaviraj Goswami wants to explain this verse. So first he explains what is the meaning of this word udharitihi. So udhar means like broad. Dihi means intelligence. So he described me here. What is the meaning of this udhariti? So buddhiman arte yadi vichar gya hoy nija kama lagiha tabe Krishna rabujai. So the meaning of the word udhariti is buddhiman, intelligent or considerate. So buddhiman arte, the meaning of this word is translated here as udhariti. So by the arte means like the meaning of the word. So by the meaning of the word buddhiman or udharitihi, it is taken as vichara gya, one who knows how to deliberate. Vichara. Vichara means deliberation or to, it says here, expert in scrutinizing things, the ability to discern. So that is the meaning of the word udharitihi. So a person who has this ability, then even for one's own sense gratification, one engages in devotional service with Lord Krishna. Nija kama lagiha tabe Krishna rabujai. So if you have ability to discern, then you will come to this conclusion. That's what it's saying. That even if I want to enjoy in this material world, even then I should also do Krishna bhajan. So obviously, this is, one may say, but there are many people who are enjoying the material world without doing Krishna bhajan. Someone's going to ask that question. Anyway, let's see what else he says here. I think I have some reply to that, but I know this thing is coming. If you are intelligent, even for enjoyment, then you will do Krishna bhajan. That is the meaning of buddhiman. The idea here is then what to speak of things that are vastly superior to material enjoyment, like moksha or some sort of devotional, then definitely you'll do Krishna bhajan. But even for this thing, if you have discerning intelligence, then you'll do Krishna bhajan, even for satisfying your desires for sense enjoyment. Next verse. The other processes cannot yield results unless they are associated with devotional service. Bhakti vino kono sarana dite nari pala. So other sadhanas are not able to give pala, the fruits or results, without bhakti. Sabha pala dheya bhakti swantara prapala. But bhakti yoga is so strong and independent, swatantra and prabhala, that it can give the fruit that one desires without support of other processes, is the idea here. So other sadhanas require bhakti in order to bear their fruit. But bhakti is independent because it's part of the internal energy of Krishna. So it has its own power to give bhakti, or not only to give bhakti, it has its own power to give any fruit, sabapala, all sorts of fruits it can give by its own inherent power. So yeah, the other day, I think Harishan was asking about this. He was referencing Bhakti Sandarbha. So Jiva Goswami was making the point there that in order to be qualified for paths of Jnana yoga, you have to already have a very pure, subtle body, basically, antakarna, to be really qualified for pursuing those paths and its full authenticity and getting the fruit. But even if you're a very unqualified person, even if you're a very fallen person, bhakti is independent, swatantra, and prabhala. It has its own strength. So even if one is very fallen, then one can still do bhakti. Bhakti can still manifest even in that person because it has its own strength and it's independent. In other words, swatantra, independent, means it's not dependent on so many external criteria, such as a pure subtle body, which is a material criteria. So it doesn't depend on that in order to make its influence. Sabha Paladeya Bhakti Swatantra Prabhu. So that's what Mahaprabhu is saying here. It's saying here other sadhanas. So because the question may come, I guess I'm putting the question out there. It's saying even for material enjoyment, if you want to enjoy materially, then there also you have to do bhakti. So this may be a reference, because here it's using the word sadhana. So this may be a reference to karma marg. So if you want to enjoy sense gratification, there's a method for doing that also. So that is called path of karma. Krishna speaks about this in Bhagavad Gita, for example, chapter 3 speaks about path of karma. Even for material enjoyment, you have to, heaven and earth has to cooperate, right? Earth means humans and heaven means the devatas. And by their cooperation through the principle of yajna, then there can be material prosperity and the satisfaction of all desires. So only by the cooperation of heaven and earth is it possible to enjoy in this material world. And the main principle that allows for that cooperation is yajna. And the yajna is ultimately Vishnu, because Krishna says that food comes from rain, rain comes from yajna. Yajna is based on prescribed duties. Prescribed duties are mentioned in the Vedas, and the Vedas are coming from the imperishable spirit, Brahmakshara. And therefore, the Brahmakshara, this imperishable spirit, is situated in the acts of yajna. So Vishnu is there in the acts of performing the yajna. So even if you want to enjoy materially through path of karma, you have to perform yajna. And it is that yajna where the Vishnu principle is there. You could say the bhakti principle is there and the performances of yajna. And it is by that yajna that this enjoyment becomes possible. So I'm intuiting this, what is the meaning here, that even for material enjoyment, you need bhakti. So some may say so many people nowadays, they are enjoying without doing bhakti, also without doing the yajna. But that enjoyment leads to profound levels of sorrow. So I don't know if Vedic culture really counts that as enjoyment. You get some pleasure, but what is the value of pleasure that culminates in, the total destruction of everything? For example, you do the drugs. So you enjoy, but after that, your brain is finished, your body becomes finished. So I don't know if that is counted as enjoyment in Vedic standard, where you get pleasure that destroys everything. I don't think that is counted as enjoyment. That is just folly or total human foolishness. So that's my intuition about this, even for enjoying. Enjoying means ultimately, enjoying on the path of karma means ultimately getting Swargaloka. So even for that, there's some bhakti element there. Or enjoying on karma mark means having, good family, nice birth, etc., etc. So for that, bhakti also required. So without bhakti, these other sadhanas cannot bear fruits, but bhakti is independent and powerful, and it can give its fruit, or it can give all fruits even without support of other things. That's what Mahaprabhu is saying here. So if you are buddhiman, because he's describing the meaning of this word uttariti, what does it mean to be intelligent? So if you're an intelligent person, you will do bhakti yoga. That's what he wants to say. Okay, going on here. Ajagalastan nyaya anya sadhana ata eva hari bhaje buddhimanjana. But the exception of devotional service, all the methods of self-realization are like the nipples on the neck of a goat. Therefore, in other words, they don't give any fruits. Other sadhanas are like the nipples on the neck of a goat, so it doesn't give any milk. Therefore, anta eva, an intelligent person, buddhimanjana, adopts only hari bhajan, giving up all other processes of self-realization. Okay, that's his concluding point there about what it means to be intelligent. Okay, so chaturvida bhajante mam, jana sukritu narjuna, arto jiknasura tarti gyani cha bharatarshi. So best among the Bharatas, Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious men rendered devotional service unto me. the distressed desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute truth. So it was mentioned that Mahaprabhu begins this whole description by saying that there are 3 types of devotees on the path of Vidhi Bhakti, right? Those who desire, material things, those who desire moksha, and those who desire nothing, basically. These are 3 categories. And then he quotes a verse supporting that, saying that intelligent persons do bhakti, whether they have material desires or they have desire for moksha, or they have no desires, they do bhakti. Now, these 3 categories have some further divisions, basically. So that's why this verse is coming here. For those who are sakama bhaktas, right? So they're akama, moksha kama, and sarva kama, right? So then you can probably I actually didn't contemplate this deeply, how you can break it down. But basically here, these 4 types of devotees mentioned in the Gita, they are types of devotees because they approach Krishna. But some of them have their own personal desires to fulfill, so they fall under that sarvakama category. And some of them have desires for moksha, right? So these are the 2, I think these are the 2, well, at least the way Kaviraj Goswami is going to break this down, these are the 2 types. So the moksha kama category and the sarvakama category, they have these further divisions. So in terms of sarvakama, means having material desires, they're called the sakama bhaktas. So there are 2 types, those who are distressed and those who are after something material. So they have this further division. They want to remove their distress or they want to increase their material happiness. So those are the further categories of the sarvakama category. And for those who have moksha kama, desire for liberation, there are 2 types. The inquisitive mentioned here and the jnani, one who is after the absolute truth. This is basically the use of the word here. Let's read on and we'll see how he is. He says it clearly here. So artha atarthi dui sakama bhitarikani, jignasu jnani dui moksha kamamani. So materialistic devotees take to devotional service and worship Krishna when they are distressed or in need of money. Dui sakama bhitaregan. So sakama bhitare. They are sakama bhaktas. They are interested in the material enjoyment, which has 2 divisions: removing distress and increasing the happiness. That is the 2 divisions of material desires. If you're a bhakta in path of Shuddha Bhakti, so one of the angas of Shuddha Bhakti is Krishna Bhoga Tyaga. Krishna Bhoga Tyaga. Adi. What's the name of that anga? For the sake of Krishnarte, that's the word I'm looking for. Krishnarte, for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Bhoghati Tyaga. You give up bhoga, etc., for the purpose of Krishna. The idea is that for Krishna's pleasure, then you will prepare to accept any sort of difficulty. And for Krishna's pleasure, you're also prepared to give up any sort of pleasurable thing. Krishnarte bhoghati tyaga. For the sake of Krishna, you're prepared to do that. That is Shuddha Bhakti. Oh, materialistic devotee is not like that. We have desires. So he wants to, the stressful things, he wants them to go away. And the pleasurable things, he wants them to be increased. So they're called as sakama bhaktas. So there are 2 types, artha, atarthi. They want the distress to be removed and they want the pleasure to be increased. Okay. Then the second line, those who are actually inquisitive to understand the supreme source of everything, jignasu. And those who are in search of knowledge, jnani, are called transcendentalists, dui moksha kama mani. So I consider them to be moksha kama, but I desire liberation from all material contaminations. So this is how Kaviraj Goswami is breaking them up. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives maybe a little bit of different breakup in his Gita commentary. You'll see different acharyas give different things, but here Kaviraj Goswami giving this sort of breakup, simple and straightforward. Next verse, because they have a pious background, Echari Sukriti Hai, Mahabhagyavan. All four types of people are to be considered Mahabhagyavan, greatly fortunate. So, whether you are a Sakama Bhakta or a Moksha or Nishkama Bhakta, having a desire for moksha, still you're considered Mahabhagyavan. I know because our institution, we propagate Shuddha Bhakti. So we tend to speak lowly of anyone who isn't fully embracing the Shuddha Bhakti, standard of aspiration. So I remember one time when I first joined the movement, one of my godbrothers actually, we were being asked who is our favorite avatar of Krishna. And this particular godbrother, he said Mohini Murti. And then later on, this is actually different though. Another devotee, I don't know if he was a godbrother, but another devotee, he said he knows that the goal of Krishna consciousness is, Vrindavan and all that. But he had desire to attain Apsara Loka, which is the, planet of the heavenly damsels. And of course, we devotees, we laugh because that's practically like heresy in the community of, Shuddha Bhakti aspirants. How can you say such things and also mean it, like say it honestly? And then I remember one time, Prahladananda Swami was in Chicago and he was giving class, and one of his opening statements in the class was that you may find it surprising, but not everyone joins the Krishna consciousness movement for pure bhakti yoga. He said some people come because they just want to be free from distress, or they want to increase their material happiness also. So whether they come for, these sakama reasons, or they have nishkama reasons, they are considered as Mahabhagyavan. First of all, they are Sukriti, they are pious persons. And Mahabhagyavan, they are greatly fortunate. Tat kamadi chadi hai Shuddha Bhaktiman. So they're able to give up these aspirations or these desires, tat kamadi, those respective desires, wherever they're situated, and take to Shuddha Bhakti. So how that is possible? So that, does he describe it here? He indicates it here, and then we'll look at another verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Same point comes up there. Sadhu Sangha Kripa Kimba, Krishna Kripai, Kamadi Dhu Sangha Chadi, Shuddha Bhakti Pai. So one is elevated to the platform of devotional life by the mercy of Vaishnava, Sadhu Sangha Kripa, the bona fide spiritual master. That's another type of Sadhu Sangha. And by the special mercy of Krishna, Krishnara Kripai. On that platform, one gives up all material desires and the association of unwanted people. Kamadi tu sangachati. And then after that, one is elevated to the platform, pure devotional service. Shuddha Bhakti Pai. So by the mercy of Sadhu or by the mercy of Krishna, one gives up these other desires, kamadi, chadi, and one also gives up du sangha, bad association. And then after that, they get Shuddha Bhakti. So this also is mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So in the very beginning of the Sadhana chapter, after Rupa Goswami defines what is Sadhana Bhakti, then he defines what is Vaidhi Bhakti, then he begins this discussion on Adhikar, who has Adhikar for Vaidhi Bhakti. So after breaking down the three types of Adhikaras, Uttamadhikar, Madhyamadhikar, Kanishta Adhikar, then he quotes the same verse from Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvida Bhajante Ma, Jana Sukriti Narjuna. And in that verse, he wants to say that these four types mentioned in this verse, they didn't have Adhikar for Shuddha Bhakti. They didn't have Adhikar because they were after something else. So each of these Arto, Artarti, Jignasu, Gyani, they have their, you could say, scriptural archetypes that represent each of these. For those who want freedom from distress, the example given is of Gajendra, the elephant. Atarti means wanting the material something. So the example that is Dhruva Maharaj. Then the Jignasu, inquisitive person, example is Shonaka Rishi. And the Gyanis, example of the Gyanis are the Kumaras. Prabhu Goswami gives these 4 examples as the sort of representative archetypes of these 4 types of desires mentioned in that Gita verse. And he wants to say that they didn't have Shuddha Bhakti Adhikar. But then by the association of Krishna or Sadhu, they gave up those other desires. That's what Kaviraj Goswami is saying here also. Kamaridu Sangachadi. And then after that, they got Shuddha Bhakti Adhikar. Shuddha Bhakti Par. So Gajendra, he got association of Krishna. And by association of Krishna, he offers prayers to Krishna. And he says, at first he was like, free me from the crocodile. But then toward the end, it's very, actually, what is the use of this elephant body? Let me die also, but let me just become Krishna conscious. That is what is important. So he got Shuddha Bhakti Adhikar by mercy of Krishna. Shanak Rishi got the mercy of Sutta Goswami, right? Who was speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Kumaras, they also got the association of Krishna when they smelled the aroma of Tulsi coming from the lotus feet of Narayana. And who's left? Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj also got the mercy of Narada Muni, also mercy of Krishna. So by these examples, by their extraordinary mercy of Krishna or by the mercy of sadhus, one can give up bad association, do sangha, and give up other desires and come to Shuddha Bhakti. So this is probably the sense of why they are all glorious, Mahabhagyavan. And this is also the sense why for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they're quoting this verse from Bhagavatam, Akama Sarvakamava. Whether you have all the desires or you have desire for moksha or you're just pure, just do bhakti. Because in all cases, if you do that bhakti yoga, you'll come to the real point sooner or later. That's why they say this is intelligent. And that is a real reason they're saying this is intelligent. Because, well, as we'll see, Kaviraj Goswami say itself, by the mercy of sadhus, by the mercy of Krishna, by the nature of bhakti itself, then one comes to the point of, purity, defined as an attraction to Krishna. So that's what he's saying here. So these 4 types in the Gita verse, they didn't have qualification for Shuddha Bhakti, but by mercy of Sadhu or Krishna, they gave up these other desires and then they attained Shuddha Bhakti. Nice verse from the first canto Bhagavatam. Satsanga mukta du sango ato not sahate buddha kityamana yasho yasya sakrit akarnya ruchna. The intelligent Buddha who have understood the Supreme Lord and the association of pure devotees and have become free from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord. So by satsanga and by mukta du sangha, by freedom from bad sangha, the intelligent antu na sahate, they are not able to give up kirtyamana yasho yasya, the glories of the glorious fame of Krishna. Sakrit akarnya rochana, even once hearing it, it's so pleasing that they're not able to give it up. Yes, even though they have heard them only once, they can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord. So if you get sadhu sangha and you become free from the bad sangha, then this will be the effect. That even once you hear Krishna Katha, you feel like this is so nice. I'll never be able to give it up. Even if you're not a great devotee, you'll always be a devotee. What type of devotee you'll be? Who knows, but you'll always be a devotee. If you do sadhu sangha and you give up bad sangha, mukta du sangha. then this effect will come. Hearing Harikatha even one time, you said this is so pleasing. But how can I give it up? So he's quoting this as a sort of pramana for saying that by sadhu's kripa or Krishna's kripa, one gives up other things and becomes qualified for Shuddha Bhakti. That's what he wants to say. Okay, now he defines what is this dusanga. Cheating oneself and cheating others is called kaitava. So dusanga kaye, I say dusanga is kaitava and atma vanchana. So I say dusanga or bad association is cheating, kaitava, and atma vanchana, cheating oneself. Associating with those who cheat in this way is called dusanga, bad association. Those who desire things other than Krishna's service are also called dusanga, bad association. So Krishna, Krishna Bhakti, Vinu, Anya Kamana. So if they have other desires aside from Krishna and Krishna Bhakti, they're also called as dusanga, bad sangha. Okay, so he naturally quotes this famous verse in the Bhagavatam. And this basically he quotes this verse for the first line. Dharma projita kaitava atra parama nirmasaranam satam. So this is the second verse of the Bhagavatam. It's part of the Mangalacharana. So it says here, atra. Atra means in this book, Srimad Bhagavatam. What is discussed? The Parama Dharma, the supreme Dharma. So that Parama Dharma is Bhakti Yoga. Savai Pungsa Paro Dharma. Yato Bhakti Radokshaja. That is a Parama Dharma. And so this Bhagavatam, that is what it, in this Atra, in this Bhagavatam, this is what will be glorified. And Projita Kaitava, and all cheating Dharma will be forcibly kicked out. All cheating Dharma will be kicked out. Now, Kaviraj Goswami just said he considers dusanga to be cheating, Kaitava. So what is this Kaitava? Basically, anything that is not Shuddha Bhakti, they accept as Kaitava, right? He already said Krishna, Krishna, Bhakti, Venu, Anya Kamana. If you have some other desire than this Krishna, Krishna, Bhakti, then that's a type of cheating. And Atma Vanchana, cheating of others and cheating oneself. You promote other things than Krishna, Krishna, Bhakti. So you cheat others. And you're interested in other things than Krishna, Krishna Bhakti, so you cheat yourself. So these things have been kicked out in Srimad Bhagavatam, which means that they will be nicely criticized. That's why people don't. They prefer hearing Bhagavad Gita. Or just some nice, socially viable, spirituality. It's all about love. It's all about compassion and empathy. Everyone likes those topics. And then they come to Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is criticizing everything that's below the standard of Shuddha Bhakti. Is this little pinching. So that's because you are a cheater. You cheat yourself also, you cheat others also. Dusanga. That is dusanga. So the Bhagavatam is kicking all of this out. That's what he wants to say here. This dusanga is kicked out by Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's kicked out by Sadhu Sangha and Krishna's Kripa also. Okay? That's why this verse is quoted here in this context. I'm not reading the whole thing because that was a purpose there. So the pra and projita kaitava. So what does it mean of this pra? This pra shabde, the prefix pra, moksha vancha kaitava pradan. So the reason this prefix pra and the word projita specifically refers to those desiring liberation or oneness, moksha vancha. Such a desire should be understood to be the foremost cheating propensity. So kaitava pradhan. Pradhan means like the chief, topmost cheating. Kaitava pradhan, this topmost cheating is moksha. So we've mentioned many times in these classes because once you merge into Brahman, that's it forever. So the potential for Krishna bhajan is destroyed completely once you merge into the Brahman. That's why in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami composes this verse. Bhukti mukti spriha yava pishachri hidi vartate. Bhakti sukhasyatra, I'm missing a word there. It says those who desire bhukti, mukti, as long as the desire of bhukti and mukti is in the heart, like a pichachi, like a demoness or witch or ghost, hunting the heart, then how can the happiness of bhakti come in that heart? Then it quotes like 50 verses criticizing bhukti, but mostly criticizing mukti, because mukti is moksha vanksha kaitava pradhan. So many verses he criticizes mukti. And in some of those verses, if you study them, they're saying going to hell is superior to sayuja mukti. Some of the verses quoted there and the way the commentators explain them. Going to hell is superior to moksha, because hell is temporary position. You'll suffer a lot. Then you'll come back to Bhumando. Then you might get a chance for sadhu sangha and then take to bhakti. So that's very good. And after all, hell is not that bad because of what they call it. They call it as hedonic adaptation. You know this word, hedonic adaptation? Hedonic adaptation means that when you're on one standard of living, and then you aspire for this higher standard of living and enjoyment. Then when you first get it, you're like, wow, this is wonderful, this is great. But then you adapt to that. And then it becomes like, it becomes, how you said, normalized for you. So then it's not so much attractive anymore. So then you want the next best thing. And then if you attain the next best thing, then it's like so wonderful and so glorious. But then hedonic adaptation, then it becomes normal. Just like when you get into a relationship, in the beginning, it's like, so wonderful. Then after a few weeks, all right, this, all right, had a little taste of this. Now I want another one. That's how the mind thinks because of this hedonic adaptation principle. So that also works opposite. When you're suffering, when you have a certain standard of enjoyment and then you suffer. So when the first suffering comes, it's just like so intense, but then you adapt. So therefore, Kapila also says this in his teachings, right? No matter how hellish a condition, the jiva can adapt to it. And then it becomes like normal. It's like the story of when Indra is cursed to become a pig. Then he adapts. Then later on when Brahma comes and says, hey, become king of heaven again. No, I'm good. I'm good now. Got my pig wife, my piglet kids. I'm good. Why do I need to be the king of heaven? So this hedonic adaptation works, both ways. So if you go to hell, you'll adapt. That's why I'm saying this. If you go to hell, the jiva has this ability, he can adapt to any condition. And then sooner or later, you can run into sadhus by some special grace, so you can take a bhakti. But if you merge into Brahman, finish. So this is considered chief most. Kaitava Pradhan. This is topmost cheating. So Shloka Sridhar Swami, Kariyachena Bhakhyana. So the great commentator Sridhar Swami has explained the verse in this particular way. Right. So this should be given up. All right, last few verses here. So when merciful Lord Krishna understands that a foolish devotee desires material prosperity, he gratefully gives him the shelter of his lotus feet. In this way, the Lord covers the devotee's undesirable ambitions. So Dayalu Bhagavan is very merciful. And he is knowing that the Sakama Bhakta is foolish. He has desire for material things. And he's worshiping Krishna for those material things. So Krishna is not so foolish. We already heard this verse in the Abhideya Tattva chapter. Mahaprabhu explained the same point there to Sanatana Goswami. So he gives the enjoyment also, but he gives it in such a way that you don't keep coming back to him for those material things. And then finally, he gives his own feet. So achara nantiya, kare ichara pita. And when you get some happiness from service to his lotus feet, then you forget other desires. Other desires become ichara pidan, they become covered. Then he quotes this verse, same verse he quoted earlier, so I'm just going to read it. Whenever Krishna is requested to fulfill one's desire, he undoubtedly does so, but he does not award anything which, after being enjoyed, will cause one to petition him again and again to fulfill for the desires. When one has other desires but engages in the Lord's service, Krishna forcibly gives one shelter at his lotus feet, or one will forget all other desires. So again, this is just bolstering the idea that why it's considered as intelligent to worship Krishna even if you have material desires. So that's the reason. Sooner or later, you come to the point. Why? How you'll come to the point? By this shloka. Sadhu Sangha Krishna Kripa Bhakti Swabha. So either by Sadhu Sangha, by Krishna's mercy, or by the nature of bhakti itself. Tine Savu Chaita Kare Krishna Bha. So these three, Sadhu Sangha Krishna Kripa, or the nature of bhakti, cause one to give up everything else. Tadhai. Kare Krishna Bhav. And then you get Krishna Bhav. You start to fall in love with Krishna. So, yes. So in all cases, you do this bhakti yoga. All right, now he closes out. In this way, I shall progressively explain all the words not Rama verse. So this was just a synopsis of how he's going to explain everything. So we basically contacted the main ideas of his explanation. It should be understood that all these words are meant to enable one to taste the transcendental qualities of Krishna. Krishna guna aswadhera ehitu janita. Try to understand the reason for these explanations is to taste the qualities of Krishna and to fall in love with him. Okay, I have given all these explanations just to give some indication of the verse's meaning. Now let me explain the real meaning of the verse. Now the fun begins. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to try to cover all the ideas. So, Hare Krishna, what's the difference between Shonak Rishi and the Kumaras? Shonak Rishi is considered Jignasu, and the Kumaras were considered as Gyanis in terms of that Gita verse. Didn't they go to Vaikuntha due to their inquisitive nature? No. Go and read 3rd canto, chapter 15. Why did they go to Vaikuntha? Well, just because they're inquisitive. The idea here is that they were already liberated, right? Gyanis. They were already liberated. They're situated in Brahmananda. So the Jignasu person is not like that. He is inquiring into some deeper reality. And the Gyani is already situated in some level of deeper reality. That is distinction being made there. I don't think the Kumaras went to Vaikuntha because they were inquisitive. You can go and read the pastime and see. So where does Shukadev fall? What do you mean does Shukadev fall? He's not given as an example here. But you can also maybe say he was like Gyani, situated in Brahmananda. Then he heard Bhagavatam and got attracted by Vyasa's mercy. But Rupa Goswami doesn't give him as an archetype there, he gives another one. But it can also work there, it's fine. So does that mean that the wise category is comprised of non-devotional jiva muktas? Yeah, the way that is being used here, yes. Rupa Goswami has a really long commentary to this verse in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He's saying how there's some debate amongst Vaishnavas. Who does this Gyani refer to? Is it a impersonalist Jiva Mukta, or is it a personalist Jiva Mukta? So some Vaishnavacharyas, like in Sri Sampradaya, they say this refers to a personalist. Someone he has Bhagavat Gyan. He has attraction. He knows about Bhagavan. He's attracted to impersonalism. So there's different comments. All of them are accepted as fine, no problem. But the way it's being used here by Rupa Goswami in the verses that I was mentioning, it refers to some like impersonal Brahmananda, situated in impersonal attraction of Brahmananda. That is how it is being used. And they got attracted to Krishna. That's the idea. They didn't have Adhikar Prashuddha Bhakti, even though they were very advanced in a sort of generic spiritual sense. But by the mercy of Sadhu or Krishna, they also got attracted to Shuddha Bhakti. That's how it's used. Okay, Athena has some question.
Hare Krishna, JJP, Dandavat Pranams. I apologize, I joined late, and so my mind wasn't able to properly orient. But this is just a tag on question to Agape's question. So just to be clear, the four Kumaras were Jiva Muktas, they were liberated, and then they took to the Shanta Rasa when they were attracted to the personal liberation. When is that correct? And then when we think about, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we say that we really don't consider Shantaras as desirable because service really starts at Dasya. But then I heard that Prahlad Maharaj is in the Shantaras, and Prahlad Maharaj is like one of the most exalted souls, and we like celebrate Prahlad. And I think in your hierarchy he's like number 4, something very, very high. So could you, I mean, I don't know if any of what I said is true, but that's what I heard. And it's interesting if Prahlad is in Shantaras, how we don't really respect that rasa, but he's one of the most exalted souls. Thank you.
Well, number one, we didn't mention that they got attracted to Shantaras, but that is okay also. Number two, Shantarasa it's devotional also, right? We've been hearing from Mahaprabhu in these teachings that those who have Shantarati, because the basis of Shantarasa is the Shantarati. So their love goes all the way up to prema for Krishna. So they also have prema. And it is not that we don't respect the Shantarasa, but we do understand that Mahaprabhu came to distribute the rasas of Braja. So there are Dasya Rasa and Braj, Sakya Rasa and Braj, Madhurya Rasa and Braj, Vatsalya Rasa and Braj. So Mahaprabhu came to distribute those 4. So in that sense, the Shantarasa isn't really included in terms of what Mahaprabhu was trying to distribute. So it's not that there's disrespect. There is no, or lack of respect, absence of respect. Because they also have prema. The Shantarasa is based on the experience of prema. Shantarati extends all the way up to prema. So they also, that is very respectable. Anyone who has prema is very respectable. But Mahaprabhu is not come to distribute that.
Thank you, but I'm also just want to clarify, I'm confirming that the 4 Kumaras and Prahlad were both in Shantaras. Is that correct?
I never heard this thing about Prahlad Maharaj. I heard, Prabhupada says in his commentaries in the Bhagavatam that he was in Vatsalya Rasa, but having Krishna as the father. Because Prahlad Maharaj is also a Krishna Bhakta, right? He's not in a Singha Bhakta, he's a Krishna Bhakta. And in Dasya Rasa, there are 2 types. So one type is, of course, when you're rendering like service to Narayana. This is, okay, maybe there are 3 types you can say. Well, one is when you're rendering service to Narayana. Another is when you have the Lord as your father. That is also a type of Dasya Rasa. And of course, there's the Dasya Rasa and Braja also, where they render all sorts of intimate services to Krishna and Braja. And Prabhupada says Vatsalya Rasa having Krishna as a father. So I don't remember which purport where he says that. I'm 100% sure he says that in one of his purports when I was studying that some years ago. So I always understood he was in Dasya Rasa. I never heard this thing about him being in Shantarasa. And the Kumaras, yes, Shantarasa, their bhakti extends up to that.
Thank you. So just going forward, I could properly, I guess, understand 4 Kumaras and Shantaras, and then Prahlad Maharaj and Dasya Ras, or Vatsalya Ras.
We have to look it up, but yes, definitely at least a Dasya Rasa. But Prabhupada writes somewhere about Vatsalya Rasa, which is just very interesting. I don't. So anyway,
thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Anyone wants to ask anything? Okay, we'll take a little pause here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Oh, Haribo.
Yeah, just following up on your answer just now. Now, my understanding is that I thought that in Vatsalya Ras, right, where there's that parental mood, whether you are on the perspective of the parent or the child, right? Whether the participant of the relationship is a parent or a child, the relationship is considered Vatsalya. So when you said that if you
where you have
are
heard
seeing,
this,
well, I'm thinking of Dharandhar Maharaj, right? Where,
he is told like this.
Well, I can only tell you what my understanding is from what
Okay. So we have to look this up. We have to go and see Dasiras discussion and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and also Vatsalya Ras. Then we can give clarity on that. I've not heard this thing before, but it might be true also.
Okay, so the point is that, in a relationship, right? Let's say is a relationship between a parent and a child, right? There's two vantage points from which to experience that one relationship.
Okay.
From the parental side or the child's side, right? But regardless of which side you are experiencing the relationship, it's a parental relationship. That's what.
Yeah, by the logic, that makes sense. I don't know if that is the Siddhanta. That's what I'm saying. That's why, for the logic you just given, so that supports what Prabhupada says, that Prahlad Maharaj is in Vatsalya Rasa, by this logic. So I'm not denying that. I'm saying I don't know what is the Siddhanta on that. So that has to be looked up.
Okay, so then that's what sparked my question when you said that, if a person is seeing Krishna as father, right? I thought I understood you to say that in that
case, there's a type of dasya.
Yes, and that's why I was confused,
Yes, so all these things are possibilities. So what is a Siddhanta? You have to go and study that section, or look at it. Not even study it, just look at it and get a sense. I'm trying to look it up now, but it's just too much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'd like to add that, and actually, thank you, Gail, for bringing that up, because in one sense, if you could see Krishna as father in both Vatsalya and in Dasya, then what's the difference? How can you tell if you're in Dasya Ras or in Braj, and then or Vatsalya Ras? If you can, in both of those rasas, you can see Krishna as father.
No, Dasya Rasa Braj is different. And the Dasya Rasa I was talking about, saying Krishna as father, refers to Dwarkavasis. Krishna has so many children, right? And they all see him as father, right? So that bhakti is in Dasya Rasa. But it has to, that's what I'm saying, I have to look it up, honestly.
Thank you. Just going on what Gail had said too, I had heard, and I know you always have to make sure the pramana is correct and what is the Siddhanta. But I'm sorry, I can't pull it up now, or it would just take me some time. There was this article written, I think it was on ISKCON Desire Tree, and I don't know what devotee wrote this, but it was taking, and I know you're not of the other religions, but if you look at all the Shaktivisha avatars, they categorize them into the different rasas. So, for example, they say Jesus Christ is in Vatsalya Ras.
No, I have not considered this question because I don't know. I don't do comparative religious studies like this, and that is nothing. Our acharyas definitely never say anything like that. So that is just some suggestion of some devotee. I will not be able to answer this question.
Okay, it was just, I guess, an example that Vatsalya Ras can be in like Krishna, God being the father. It doesn't have to be around where the devotee is the father caring for Krishna. So that's just another, I guess, another devotee supporting that in the Vatsalya Ras, they can see Krishna as father. Thank you.
Maybe. But we have to say what is the Siddhanta. Everyone just throwing suggestions around. Or need the pramana, see what is the Siddhanta on that. So I have to look it up. That's what I'm saying.
JGP, if you're actually doing the research, fine, I'd love to hear what the pramana and what the Siddhanta actually says about that. I guess tomorrow or whenever. Thank you so much. I'm curious just myself. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to say? Okay. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. We'll carry on tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Right.